you consent?
I consent.
You act out of love. Love is consent. Monk, Bill, you have consent. And you have
Sweet as candy.
your virginity.
Its taste is on my mind. Girl, you got me thirsty for another cup of wine. Got a bug from you, girl. But I just
Ben?
be a victim.
What have you done?
If I can for sure.
Promising you'll get my plant back.
All alone, keep it
But
up.
you don't have to worry about
Yeah, you turn
with my virginity. I'm fine with that being lost. Yes, Doctor. Don't worry about it. At least the virginity gets at least.
that you're in love with me.
Screwdriver, will you need it? Oh, God!
Oh, is he gone? Yeah, who cares?
When we're all alone, keep it up, girl. Yeah, you turn me on.
From now on, I want 2 planes. One for me and one for my glamorous assistant, Erica! I'm not really your glamorous assistant. I'm just helping you out at the moment. It's kind of my job. And also, it was my colleague's fault. He's now in a puddle on the floor now. So, yeah, and I might even be infected myself. So I can't let anybody else be. So, yeah, I kind of am helping you. Do I really need a jet? I mean, it'd be cool, but, yeah, do I really need one? Beats driving, I guess. Excuse me, what about me? I mean, I'm your assistant. And Nardal? What about Nardal? Were you gonna forget about me and Nardal? Well, Bill, I've got something I kind of gotta confess. And that is... Oh, I've got to go. The place is about to blow. I hope there isn't a silly number thing that gets in the way that me being blind would be a way to get me stuck or something. That would be silly, wouldn't it? Right, see ya. I like my running away, don't I? What? Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my revisitation review of Doctor Who, Series 10, Episode 7, The Pyramid at the End of the World, which is the second of the 3 episodes that form the Monk trilogy, but again, this is a single-parter, so each of these are being reviewed separately, and I'll be talking about how they fit into the wider trilogy, as well as how they are as a standalone episode. Also, this is the first episode of the series that has actually gone down in opinion. Extremis was kind of like an up-down all around both times sort of thing, but this is the first one that's actually had a proper going down since previous rewatches before this, the most recent one, whilst previous episodes have either gone up or they've stayed about the same. I still think this is the best of the trilogy though, which is what my opinion was when I first watched this episode. And I know this one that's not a hugely popular opinion, because this one isn't hugely liked. I mean, it's not considered one of the all-time worst, but it's kind of like a it's not very popular with the fan base. I know Jacob C. Rose, when he did a guest video for the Universals back in 2017, he put this as his least favourite when doing a quick summary of the series 10 episodes, he put this as his least favourite. So it's not a hugely popular story. Also, sorry for any noise you might hear outside. I think there's a helicopter out there. But for me, Pyramid at the End of the World was one of my favourites at the time, back in 2017. I think I went so far as to put it third. And then this went down to fourth on the projected list before the rewatches as part of the marathon. And now it's currently more close to the middle, I think, which is a bit of a shame. So, okay, so The Pyramid at the End of the World. The plot of this episode sees the Doctor, Bill, and Nardal head to a fictional country called Tunisia, which is on the border of, has three opposing armies surrounding this area: the Americans, the Russians, and the Chinese. I don't know why the Americans are there. I don't know. I don't even know if the Russians and the Chinese are even on if the country's on their borders or anything. Now, Kazakhstan, that would make a lot of sense for them anyway. I'm not sure about the Americans, unless they've come through from Afghanistan, but I think that's still a bit of a distance. But either case, in the middle of this area around the three armies is this strange pyramid, this ancient pyramid that wasn't there the day before the United Nations have gone to ask the Doctor for his help because he's the president of the world. So he's also asked them to collect Bill, who he had at the end of the previous episode, he told to go on a date with Penny, as seen in the simulation. So Bill tries to go on a date with Penny, but they are once again interrupted. Just like in the simulation, they are interrupted in real life, this time by United Nations officers and the Secretary of State, played by Toga Ogwa. Toga Ogawa. I'm probably butchering that name. And he's a Japanese actor. Fun fact, he appeared in an episode of Torchwood in series 1 of that series, of that show, back in 2006 in the episode Cyberwoman, written by Chris Chibnall, which is a very controversial and infamous episode. When I get to the Torchwood reviews, I'm going to talk about that one. But yeah, he's in that, and he's here. And let's just say for both Doctor Who experiences, at least on screen, I'm not sure if he's done expanded media, but for both television Doctor Who universe stuff, he doesn't really get a very happy ending. I think his death in this episode is not as gruesome as in Torchwood, and he gets more to do, but he still doesn't really get out alive, spoiler alert, in either Cyberwoman or this episode. So yeah. On the plus side, he is in Thomas the Tank Engine, Thomas and Friends, which is another franchise I love, and he has about at least 11 years on that show as the character hero, so he got a good stint out of that, so that's a plus. But as for the Doctor Who universe, yeah, he hasn't really had the opportunity to play a character who doesn't die. He's always playing characters who dies, or has done in the 2 he's done so far. He might come back at a later point, or expanded media. Who knows? He might even have done expanded media, I'm not sure. Someone put it down in the comments. But yeah, anyway, so the Secretary of State takes Bill to the Air Force One. I thought that got blown up in the Zygon inversion. I guess it's a new plane. But there's no unit involvement. By the way, Dr. Mysterio was the last time we saw units. They got referenced a few times in the Whittaker era, but more on that when we get to that. Because it's not an exactly amusing revelation about them. At least so far, they might come back again. And they've also got time fractures, expanded media stuff going on at the moment. So, yeah. But, yeah, anyway, so the United Nations calls for the Doctor's help, and they brought Bill and Nardal on board. Oh, yeah, I've got to mention, I don't really like them just bashing into Bill's house, just pointing guns everywhere before saying, oh, it's okay, Mr. Secretary of State. I mean, fair enough if they want to keep him alive. They don't want him to get hurt. But what's wrong with a simple knock on the door or doorbell just to ask, you Bill Potts? Yes? Oh, we need your help. His Secretary of Home Secretary, whatever. He can tell you what's going on, etc., etc. Just do it like that. I know it's not as exciting, but to be honest, it's just action. I'm not even action. It's just excitement for the sake of excitement. And they got plenty of excitement with proper exciting stuff later. So yeah, the UN didn't need to do that. Anyway, so the Doctor and co go to Tunisia, and the Doctor discovers that it's the monks. They have planted this pyramid there. The monks say that they are there to help the humans. They will protect them from an incoming catastrophe that will destroy all life on Earth. and they need the humans to consent to their help. However, if their consent isn't pure, then the humans asking for help will die, and the monks won't help. But if it's pure, they will help, and that would lead them to taking over the planet, as we'll see in the next episode. The Doctor, naturally having experienced the previous episodes and sent his simulation self, sending it to his real self, knows of these creatures and tries to make sure that the humans don't negotiate with them, as well as trying to prevent the catastrophe that they're overlooking. And this is a pretty great idea that we've got this catastrophe perhaps happening. It's not necessarily the war between the Americans, the Russians, and the Chinese, World War III, basically. It's not necessarily that, because that's too obvious, as the Doctor says. And even with the three armies basically allying themselves with each other and stating that they'll stand together, which they should always do, but even that doesn't seem to be what's stopping the problem, because they're the distraction. The real threat is something more deadly and more, or rather less noticeable, and that is it's also an accident, and it's a biological threat by this new bacteria that has accidentally been created in a biological research thing in Yorkshire by a scientist who was very drunk. This is due to the fact that his colleague had her glasses smashed, and so he had to put in the numbers, but a misplaced decimal place, this decimal point, had caused there to be too much of one thing, which has caused a bacteria that would go into the atmosphere. So it needs to be contained with the lab. Fun fact, the actor who plays the drunk guy here, Douglas, was the guy who played the dad in My Parents Are Aliens, and also appeared in an episode of Death in Paradise a few months before this episode aired. Funny enough, I actually watched the episode when I was in Cardiff, when I went to do the Doctor Who experience around that time. Also, spoiler alert for that episode of Death in Paradise, it's about a murder that took place many years earlier, and they're trying to reinvestigate the case when there's new evidence. And it turns out that the character who's played by the actor who plays Douglas in this episode is the one who did the original killing in the first place. Oh yeah, and Douglas dies. Sad. But on the plus side, Erica, who's played by an actress, a shorter actress, so it's pretty great. We got an actress who's how do I say it's short, basically, and she's really great. Apart from this one line where she does sound like, "What? Oh my God, what have you done?" There's that one line where she sounds a bit bored, but the rest of it, she's really great. But yeah, it's great to have her in it, and it's also pretty interesting to see some of this going on at the same time as the monk stuff, as they're keeping an eye on this thing. They know it's going to happen, that this biological stuff is going to be out into the atmosphere, and that's what's going to be the catastrophe, but they can stop it if the humans ask for their help. However, when they do, it's out of fear and or strategy, so they won't help. So the Doctor and Nardole take it upon themselves to try and stop it, and they succeed more or less. However, Nardole, having human lungs, they're disintegrated, and the TARDIS has a bit of a wibbly-wobbly moment. I didn't even think bacteria could get into the TARDIS. I thought the TARDIS would be a sterile area, but maybe not. Maybe unless the TARDIS's sterilization is fighting against the new bacteria. Probably because it's new, it might be that. That's just me, though. It might not be an official thing, or at least not yet, anyway. But the Doctor's able to stop the bacteria going into the atmosphere, but he can't get out before it's before he's going to blow it up before it gets out into the atmosphere. However, he can't get out due to being blind. So Bill asks the monks to save him. So the Doctor is able to get his eyesight back and get out, but the monks then take over. And that is our cliffhanger for this episode. The monks are now taking over. See you next episode. So, Pyramid at the End of the World. I still think this is a really great episode. I still think it's the best of the trilogy. And whilst it's not one of the best of the series anymore, it's still kind of around the middle area. Acting is still really great, and it's also really great seeing these characters interact with each other, and also with the main characters and with the supporting characters. Erica's a pretty great character, and the actress does a great job, apart from that one line that does sound like she's bored, like, "What have you done?" Or, "Oh my God," one of them. It was around the middle. Not going to hold it against her too much. It might just been how I perceived the line to be said. Douglas is also quite fun. And also the Secretary of State, or whatever his role was, and the generals of the three armies. They're really great as well, and have some great performances. And again, as I mentioned, it's always great to see everybody working together to fight a common threat, or rather a a new threat, or two new threats rather, the monks and the bacteria. So it's pretty great, and the way it's resolved with Bill rescuing the Doctor by giving consent to the monks, that's actually a pretty great idea, and it works pretty well for the story and for this trilogy. So as a whole, Pyramid at the End of the World is probably a better set up story than Extremis was. It sets up the monks pretty well. It sets up what they want and what they're trying to do. It explains that they're trying to look like humans, but they see humans as corpses, so they look like corpses. So that's a pretty interesting reveal. And them stopping the humans' attacks on them is also pretty great, but without causing any harm to the humans or to their plane or submarine that they try to use. The American plane, the Russian submarine. The Chinese don't really use anything. It would have been interesting to see a tank. That would have been interesting, or something. So yeah, this is a really interesting story, but it's not perfect. I think I liked it more when I watched it originally, but it's still a pretty good episode. Oh, and one other nitpick. There's a bit in the episode, and I think Jean-Luc Harry brings it up in his review on the Universals, is that there's a bit where they play a track that has either intentionally or unintentionally sounds like I Am the Doctor, which is the 11th Doctor's theme, and this is the 12th Doctor. There was fans complaining that they were using I Am the Doctor for the Next Time trailers in Series 8, even though that was with the 12th Doctor, not the 11th. But yeah, this is the first track that sounds very much like I Am the Doctor, and yeah, it's with the 12th Doctor, not the 11th. Naughty Murray-Gold. I mean, maybe it's a new track, but it just sounds like the I Am the Doctor. And there's a track in the next episode, it might even be the same track, that does this as well. But yeah, I Am the Doctor, unintentionally or intentionally, is played as part of this episode, as part of the track of this episode. So overall, I think The Pyramid at the End of the World is a pretty great episode. Not perfect, but still pretty great. It has gone down in opinion from 4 years ago, but it's still a pretty great episode. Again, it's not one of the top 3-4 episodes like I used to think, but it might be around 6-7 area, so about the middle. So overall, I will be giving The Pyramid at the End of the World an 8 out of 10. Dropped down from a 9, but I still think it's the best of this trilogy, and it's still a pretty great episode. So that's The Pyramid at the End of the World. Next time, the grand finale of this trilogy and the start of the Missy Redemption arc, series arc that will last up until the finale. The Lie of the Land, which, spoiler alert, is easily the weakest story or weakest episode of the Monk trilogy, and probably one of the weakest episodes of the series. That being said, I did kind of expect to go into it expecting to hate it, to maybe do a rant about it when I got around to doing the review, revisitation review rather, but actually it's not going to be a rant, but I still wouldn't give it a highly positive review. I'll see how I feel when I get around to actually reviewing it. But until then, thank you for watching this review of The Pyramid at the End of the World, or rather the revisitation review. I'll see you guys next time for The Lie of the Land. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the Nicholas Payne YouTube channel. Also, this is the first episode. So with The Pyramid at the End of the World, I still think this is the best of the trilogy, which is what but as for Doctor Who or Doctor Universe, yeah, he doesn't really get. He hasn't had good. I thought that was blown up. Actually, I thought that one got blown up in the last story with. And I'll just have to quickly mention, why did UN have to bash down Bill's door like they're the police or the army or something? They bash it down. What's wrong with this? Anyway, so I've gone on to I can't believe at time of recording I'm almost 7 minutes in and I haven't actually gotten to the bloody plot. Although at time with you watching this, it's probably less than 7 minutes due to editing. Then again, there's also the sketch and the titles. But regardless, anyway, the plot of this episode by this new bacteria that is attempting to, and another scientist who couldn't is playing. Also, spoiler alert for that episode of Death in Paradise, he's the killer. Also, spoiler alert for that episode of Death in Paradise, he's the one who. Also, spoiler alert for that episode of Death in Paradise, he turns out to be the one who committed the murder that took place a few years before the events of the episode. And that whole episode is about. And it turns out that the character who plays Douglas in this episode. So, yep, spoiler for that. So, spoiler for that episode of Death in Paradise, it's Douglas's. So, spoiler alert, Douglas committed the murder in Death in Paradise in that episode. Honestly, I think that was the best thing that happened. Honestly, being arrested for a crime that's 8 years old compared to disintegration, I think I'd take the arrest. Unless he goes back to looking after orphans again, in which case, yeah. Unless he goes back to looking after orphans again, that would be a good thing. That's just me, though. That might not be canon. It might not be. That's just me, though. It might not be. She sounded a bit bored. Hang on. But yeah. So it's pretty good. Oh, and one other nitpick, and there's also. But besides that, it's the music is. But yeah. Anyway, out of 13, that's still pretty great. So. Especially this series, as so far we've had about, well, especially this series, which has been getting pretty strong for the first 5 episodes. Especially in this series where it kept getting better and better across the first 5 episodes. But it's still going to be probably the week. See how I see how. From now on, I want 2 planes. One for me and one for my glamorous assistant, Erica. No, Eric Carr, not Eric Carr. Honestly. Let's go. Why did he... Oh, and what's that? Okay, this is Eric Lines. And again, I don't know